Hi, friends. Welcome. Thanks for tuning in. Again, you made it through another day. Good job. One step closer to the other side of this. High five. I'm Carter, pastor, New Break Ocean Beach. Tomorrow night, we're going to talk about hope. We'll finish out the week, head into the weekend, and just talk about one of my favorite topics, really, all about hope. So I hope you tune back in 7 o'clock or watch it later. Tonight, though, got awesome story for you. One of the best prison stories ever. I don't know if you have a favorite prison TV show or a favorite prison movie. I know there's a few that are out there. Personally, I love Shawshank Redemption. Yeah, definitely not one to watch with the kids. It's edited on TV a lot, but man, fascinating story. But I want to tell you this awesome prison story, and it's a true story. And it happened in our world back in the first century, and it's about a couple of really cool guys. One guy is named Paul, and his buddy is named Silas. Paul and Silas, they're really into their faith, super passionate about their faith, always talking about it. Back then, that got you arrested. So their faith in God got them beaten, stripped naked, beaten, flogged, and then thrown into prison. And the city officials were so mad at them, they even told the jailer, "We want you to guard them, be right next to them." So they throw these guys in prison in like the center cell, so they can't get out, and all the other prisoners are around them, and they can all see them. And the jailer's just sitting there watching him, but he falls asleep. So the story goes, it's at midnight, and you find Paul and his buddy, and they're praying. Foxhole prayers, right? I'd be praying in that situation. Doesn't matter your faith, you kind of end up praying. But something interesting, they're also singing hymns to God. So they're praying and singing, and I don't know if all the other prisoners watching them are like annoyed, "Shut up, we're trying to sleep," or if they're like, "This is fascinating," but they're all watching on. And all of a sudden, in the middle of this, an earthquake hits. So this earthquake hits and rattles actually all of the jail cell doors. It rattles all of them wide open. And so, you'd think this is at the point in the story where somebody just yells, "Prison break," and they all just run out and escape as fast as they can. But they don't. All right, so here's the plot twist, kind of interesting. Paul, of course, now he can finally escape. He actually notices that the jailer suddenly woke up, realizes all the doors are open, everybody's going to escape, he's going to get fired and probably executed for letting them escape. So he pulls out his own sword to kill himself. And Paul yells out to him, says, "No, stop, wait. We're all still here. Nobody has left yet." And so just crazy, right? Instead of escaping, here's Paul trying to help save this jailer's life. And the jailer's like, "Wow, thank you," and actually just sort of falls at their feet in gratitude. And he basically says, "I've heard you talking about your faith. Tell me, how can I get to know this God that you know?" And so Paul tells him all about it. And then, story gets better. The jailer actually takes these guys, Paul and Silas, and brings them to his house. And Paul tells his whole house about his God. And meanwhile, the jailer's like cleaning up all their wounds. And then, it's still the middle of the night. It says that they all ate a meal together. And I'm thinking, man, that's a pretty fun meal. Just the middle of the night. Can you imagine that? And they're just celebrating. I mean, it had to be nachos or something, right? Isn't that what you eat in like in the middle of the night? So here they are, a big old neat meal in the middle of the night. Jailer's whole household, they all have this newfound faith in God, and Paul, helped him out. Then, what's even crazier, guess where the jailer and Paul goes next? They go back to jail. They go back to jail so that when the officials wake up in the morning, they find that everybody's still in prison. Somehow all the prisoners are convinced to stay. They're back in jail, and the next morning, the city officials come and say, "All right, I guess you can release these guys," and they don't really know what happened the night before. True story. Crazy story. And you wonder, why in the world do I tell that story? Well, I don't know if you have felt at all like you're in prison lately. I hope it doesn't quite feel like that to you. But we can feel sometimes like that, right? I'm a prisoner in my own home, especially if the kids are driving you crazy or your roommate. But it can feel like that. Or we can just feel kind of imprisoned or chained to to our situation, or sometimes it's like to an addiction, or maybe you just feel kind of imprisoned by this idea of loneliness or incredible fear right now. I've talked to so many people facing that, in prison, to having to not have a job and all these things. So I think it's a really relevant story, and I think it's all about perspective. That's something I've been working hard on lately, because it's so hard, in times like this, to just like, how do I get my perspective right? Because when it's off, it just affects everything in me mentally and emotionally. And when I get the right perspective, then it feels like I can face things and find my way to work through them. And so, real quick, 3 quick things I learned about perspective from this story. The first one is that in the midst of being imprisoned, like these guys were, and like we can feel, notice, I would expect them to be praying desperate prayers, but you read about this idea of them, just singing and singing hymns. That means they're singing songs about who God is. And I just think about, what is my prayer right now? Is it just desperation prayers? Oh God, you got to get me out of this. Or is it kind of this contentment, this calmness of, God, I just remember who you are. I know your faithfulness. And some of you even are really into music, and you even know some hymns or some different Christian songs, and you can sing those. And if you don't, hey, look some up, because they're great. So I just want to encourage you in this time, instead of sort of drifting away from God. And I know we're confused and we don't know all the reasons why and everything. But rather than draw away from God, I encourage you, if you have a faith in Him, lean in to your faith, Get yourself focused on who He is instead of just kind of what we're imprisoned in. And if you don't have faith right now, or you're just someone who's like, yeah, I sort of ditched that a while back, I'm really glad you're listening in. I'd love to answer your questions or help you out if I can in some way sometime. But, what if you use this time to explore faith, to explore, is there something bigger out there, something in the spiritual realm, and I'd love to talk to you about that. I'm no Paul in the story, would love to talk to you about that. The story, by the way, I forgot to mention, it's a real story. It comes out of actually the Bible. It's a book called Acts, the Acts of the Apostles. Acts chapter 16, starting in verse 16. So if you want to read it on your own, Acts 16:16. Huge props to my men's group, because we talked about it last night, and so I'm just stealing all the other thing about perspective in this that really challenged me when we were talking about last night is that, so often when I get into a trial, because I've been unemployed before and been sick before and just been through all sorts of things, nothing like what we're in right now, but I'll be honest, my first thought on trial is, man, how do I get to the other side of this? I just want to get out of it as quickly as I can. God, get me out of this pain as quickly as I can. And I realized, in this story, it looked like they got it out. Earthquake comes, jail doors open, but they didn't run and take it. They were focused, instead of just, how do I get out of this quickly as possible? Who can I help? And just the fact that they had the presence of mind in the midst of that terrible trial to focus on helping the jailer. And I just think, man, is that what I'm doing right now? Am I just like, I want to get out of this as quick as I can? Or am I looking around at who might need my help? I'm really challenged by that. What if we could change our perspective to move from, this is the number one question everybody asks whether they have faith or not when we get in tough times like this, is why? Right? Either why God or why is this happening? And what if I could learn to shift my perspective from why to what? From why to what? Instead of why, God, it's what do you want to do with me in this? What do you want me to do? How do you want me to respond? And so I encourage you, who can you bless while you're in this? It's not just how do you get to the other side of this? How do you make the most of this? I have a lot of friends who are therapists, by the way, and they would say one of the best things you can do as you sink into depression and into anxiety is get your focus off yourself and on to serving other people. I know it sounds a little counterintuitive, but it's so life-giving to do that. It can help, so I dare you to try it, especially if you've never tried it, all right? So instead of just why, what can I do to help? Last thing about perspective out of this is they were patient, all right? Again, man, that earthquake hits and jail doors open, I'm sprinting right out of there. But these guys waited, and guess what happened? God let them go the next day, the right way, the real way. And I wonder, am I patient enough to wait on God, or do I just try to take shortcuts? Just kind of shortcuts to do what I want to do, or will I wait and do things the right way? And so, can we have a perspective to be able to do that? So I hope that's helpful for you, because, I know having the right perspective helps me so much. And I know while we're feeling imprisoned at times, I just want to encourage you to just wait and make the most of it and trust that God's timing is perfect. I don't always like it. I usually tell him he's moving too slow for me. but he reminds me that his timing is always perfect. And again, I'd love to pray for you, even if you're not a person that really believes much in prayer or in God. I'd love to pray for you anyway, for what it's worth. So here you go, eyes opened or closed or whatever you like to do. Let me pray real quick for you. God, I just pray, help us have perspective. It's hard. It's hard in this time. We don't get to understand why or how long or what's all going to come out of it. But I pray for perspective. Help us to, if we have a faith in you, to stay focused on who you are. And just remember that doesn't change in the midst of this. If we don't know you, maybe this is a season you could help us get to know you and explore that. But give us perspective. Help us to focus not just how do I get out of this, but who can I help while I'm here? How can I grow while I'm here? How will I come out of the other side of this different and better? And so lead us through. And we do pray, God, lastly, for those who lost jobs, for health, for those in anxiety and in fear. Show up, do what you do. Do what you do. Be our awesome God who shows up in the midst when things look darkest. And we're going to trust you to do that. And we ask you in your name. Amen. Amen. I hope that was helpful to you. You can feel free to message me. You got questions or thoughts. Otherwise, I'll see you tomorrow night. We'll talk about hope. I'm going to go watch a movie with my kids. Have a great night.